Welcome, everybody. If you could have a seat, please. It is 7:00 p.m., so I'm going to call the special annual town meeting of Farmington to order. Copies of the resolution are located outside the door at the check-in area, if you need to grab that. The warning for tonight's meeting was published in the Hartford Courant on November 17th, 2022, and copies are also located on the door at the check-in area. Explanatory text copies are there as well. At this time, I'd like to ask to consider waiving the warning for the meeting tonight. And I would need a motion from somebody to waive. Bobby, thank you. And a second. Thank you. Thank you. And we'll take a voice vote. All in favor? Opposed? Hearing none, I'd say that passes unanimously. And now I would like to call for a nomination for the moderator for the meeting. Ann? Is there a second? Thank you. Thank you. And all in favor? Any opposed? Okay, hearing none, motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Hoheb. I will hear up. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, can you hear me okay? Hear me back there? All good? Hear me back there? Good? Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for selecting me as moderator of this special town meeting. Before we begin, please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance. The flag is right there. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so the procedures for this evening. We have one item to be discussed this evening, and I'm going to read it to you. Number one, to appropriate an additional $9,700,000, increasing the appropriation and borrowing authorization to an aggregate of $145,300,000 for the design and construction of a new high school on the grounds of the existing high school campus. Demolition of substantially all the existing Farmington High School other than the 900 wing and the 1928 building, and renovation and improvements to the 900 wing, and authorize the issuance of bonds and notes in an amount sufficient to finance the portion of the appropriation not defrayed from grants, and anticipated net project cost of to the town of $104,700,000. Board of Ed folks, was that a run-on sentence? Just, it was sort of a long one, but did anyone have any questions about what the subject matter is for this evening? Okay, when this item is introduced, I'll call for someone to make the motion and for someone else to second it. I'll then call on the appropriate town official to describe the item and inform you about it. Second, I will recognize anyone who wishes to speak on this specific topic. I ask you to come to the microphone. There's one there and one to my right over here. Please state your name and address for the record. I ask that you keep your comments to the agenda topic and to present them as briefly and succinctly as possible. Please note that this meeting is also being streamed via Zoom for viewing purposes only. Comments may only be made by those attending in person. If you have a question, please direct the question to me as moderator and indicate whom you would like to answer. Please confine your questions to the topic under discussion and do not enter into a debate on the topic. If the comment or question is not germane to the topic at issue, I will rule it out of order. If a number of speakers wish to be recognized, I may set a time limit for each speaker so that as many in attendance as possible may speak. This is an informational meeting only. We will discuss the item on this evening's agenda, but there will not be a vote tonight. The proposal for bonding will be decided when you submit your vote by tabulator at your regular polling place on Thursday, December 8th, 2022, between the hours of 6 a.m. and 8 p.m. Okay, our first motion for the evening. I need a motion to waive the reading of the resolution. By the way, copies of the resolution are available on the table outside of the auditorium if folks don't have them. Is there a motion to waive the reading of the resolution? Moved. Second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. May I have a motion to present the resolution under item 1 of the warning? Is there a motion? And a second? I'll now call on CJ Thomas, Town Council Chair, Meg Guerrera, Chair of the Farmington High School Building Committee, and Kat Krajewski, Assistant Town Manager, to commence the presentations. We'll then follow with comments and questions after the completion of the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Hoab. Good evening and welcome to the special town meeting for the Farmington High School Building Project. My name is CJ Thomas. I'm your Town Council Chair. Joining me tonight is Megan Guerrera, Chair of the Farmington High School Building Committee, and Kat Krajewski, Assistant Town Manager. Tonight, we'll be providing a brief summary of the Farmington High School Building Project and information on why we are holding this second referendum and the projected tax impact. I'd like to now introduce Megan Guerrera for the beginning of our presentation.
Thank you, CJ. On June 3rd, 2021, voters approved the FHS building project with a total authorization of $135.6 million. This project includes design, construction, furnishing, and equipping of a new 3-story high school building of approximately 239,000 square feet. The new high school is to be constructed on the grounds of the existing FHS campus. Also includes demolition of substantially all of the existing FHS, other than the 900 wing and the 1928 building. In addition, 900 wing renovation and improvements, which includes locker rooms and Farmington Public Schools central office, and site work, which includes improvements to traffic patterns and vehicular circulation, additional parking, relocation of athletic fields, accessibility improvements to the upper fields, football field stands and press box, and widening of Monteith Drive. Since June 2021, the project has gone through numerous design phases to prepare for construction. On October 19th, 2022, the FHS Building Committee received the bid results for the project. The base bid amount for construction costs exceeded the budgeted amount by $5,931,967. The drivers of the budget overage are inflation related to construction costs and ongoing supply chain issues. The building committee performed cost reduction exercises before bidding, including value engineering to permanently remove scope from the project and creating a list of items that the committee would add back into the project if bidding were favorable. This is a list of the alternate items the committee prioritized to add back into the project using additional appropriated funds. The total value of the alternate list is $3,752,056 and includes the replacement of the tennis courts. Based on both the inflation-driven construction cost increase and the committee's request to include the alternate list items and the tennis courts in the project, the FHS Building Committee recommended a referendum for an appropriation of $9.7 million for the FHS building project to the Town Council. The Town Council unanimously approved the committee's recommendation on October 25th, 2022. Another referendum is the required procedure per town charter to increase the authorized amount of the building project. I'd now like to introduce Kat Krajewski, Assistant Town Manager, to review the reimbursement rate, net municipal cost, and projected tax impact.
During the 2022 legislative session, the town of Farmington's reimbursement rate was changed from 18.93% for new construction and 28.93% for renovation to 30% for the entire project. This increase results in an additional $14.4 million of the project costs being reimbursed by the state of Connecticut. In June 2021, the net municipal costs, or the town of Farmington's cost share and the amount the town would have to bond, was anticipated to be $109.3 million. With an additional appropriation of $9.7 million and the additional state reimbursement, the net municipal cost is $4.6 million less at $104.7 million. This chart illustrates that change in the net municipal cost rate from June 2021 to now. In June 2021, the total project authorization was $135.6 million with an estimated state reimbursement of $26.3 million. The net municipal cost was anticipated to be $109.3 million. Now with an additional appropriation of $9.7 million, the total project cost increases to $145.3 million, with the state increasing Farmington's reimbursement rate to 30% for this project. The estimated amount of state reimbursement increases from $26.3 million to $40.6 million. This brings the total net municipal cost to $104.7 million, which is $4.6 million less than the original net municipal cost in June 2021. To determine the projected tax impact, an updated financial forecast was prepared by the town finance department and presented to town council. This forecast was created using historical data and certain financial assumptions to provide a comprehensive evaluation of Farmington's financial position over the next 10 years, as opposed to viewing the project as a standalone project. The financial assumptions used in this forecast include, but are not limited to, grand list growth based on historical averages, increases to operating budgets for the town and Board of Education, increases to the capital budget, and debt service for existing and future debt based off the town's 7-year capital improvement plan. The updated financial forecast also includes the first bond issue of $37.2 million for this project, which was issued in February 2022 at a 2.38% interest rate. The projected tax impact to the average taxpayer, which is with an assessment of $226,777 for the FHS building project, went from $466 over 5 years to $491 over 5 years. This is an additional $25 over 5 years, or $5 per year. The $25 increase is driven primarily by increased interest rates on the assumed debt service for the high school project. In the 2021 forecast, the highest projected interest rate was 3.05%. Under the latest forecast, the interest rate for the 2023 debt issuance is projected to be 4.15% and 4.25% for the remaining 2 issues in 2024 and 2025. The higher projected interest rates add about $80,000 per year to each issue. I'd like to bring back CJ Thomas for the last slide.
You notice she changed the last slide because she didn't think I could figure that out. And she was right. I'd like to start out by quoting philosopher Paul Stanley, who said, "Your life and destiny are determined to a large extent by your participation in the outcome." With that in mind, I would like to ask everyone to please do your best to get out and show up for the referendum on December 8th and encourage your friends and neighbors to do the same. It will be held, as was said earlier, Thursday, December 8th, at your regular polling place between the hours of 6 a.m. and 8 p.m. Absentee ballots are available in the town clerk's office. Just a reminder, they'll be available tomorrow, but they will not be mailed out, so you must pick them up in person. And that ends our presentation. Back to you, Mr. Hub.
Okay, thank you very much. So questions or comments? Got a microphone there, microphone there. There was a gentleman there earlier. Name, address, and please keep the questions or comments germane to the topic of the agenda. Yes, sir.
Yes, Peter Jones, 21 Briarwood Road. I'm not an accountant, I'm not a politician. I'm just a middle-class taxpayer. I don't know much. What I do know is that I implored the town before both referendums to leave the tennis courts alone. 6 beautiful, lighted, fenced-in tennis courts. I don't know much, but now you don't have the money for new ones. How outrageous, how incompetent use of our tax dollars. Volunteer committees shouldn't be in charge of our tax dollars. The opposition I headed tried to warn the voters that you didn't have construction, supply chain, pandemic increases covered, let alone Biden inflation. Your mailers assured the voters everything was covered. False information influenced the vote on the last referendum. What you are creating now is a blank check. A rush referendum will fail to produce a quorum and therefore pass by default. Not the right way to do business. The building committee got a few things wrong. First of all, location. Residents of Knollwood, Briarwood, and Arwood are living a nightmare. Incessant diesel fumes, high decibel noise, workers starting before 7, and numerous episodes of fugitive dust covering our homes, cars, swimming pools, and clotheslines. Videos and photographic evidence of construction vehicles billowing dust into the air and onto adjoining neighborhoods have been emailed on numerous occasions to the head of the building department. I have not received a response from the building department in regard to dust, not one response. They're hiding from the issue because they don't have a response. O&G, the contractor, has gaslighted and denied the issue. More recently, concrete tennis courts were demoed. My vehicle was unused during the week and in the driveway all week. It was covered by gray concrete dust. Photos again were ignored by the building department and denied by O&G. The town is failing to protect its residents. Fine. As a resident of Farmington, I am disappointed. I feel deserted and unprotected by the town. As a taxpayer, I feel cheated by misinformation. My question is, who will be fired? Who will resign? Who's going to be held accountable for these grave oversights?
Thank you, sir. Anybody else over here? Do you want to address that rhetorical question?
No, not the rhetorical question. Just to clarify, this referendum will not pass if there is a low turnout. If 3 people show up, 2 people are the majority and this referendum would pass. So this does not pass by default. I just want to clear that up.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Name, address?
Nope. Just
Oh, okay. No, you're in. You've got to say something now. Yes, ma'am.
Rather high. My name is Wendy Saffer. I'm at 27 Wynwood Road. A couple of things. When we were having the neighborhood information sessions, I actually asked, you could actually ask somebody a question, not just type it in. I asked the architect at the time, because costs were already going through the roof, supply chain was already an issue, and they weren't even going to be going out to bid till later. And he said that it was at least 10%. I can't remember the exact percentage, was built into his estimate. so that they were building that into it in case there were cost overruns. So one question is where did that go? The other thing is that I assume, it seemed like we got that extra 14 million or whatever. Are you saying that we didn't actually get it? When you announced it in, was it June, that the town was going to get more money for the construction? And now it sounds like the only way we get the money is if we pay more money. And then the third thing is that I don't know if we'll go to another referendum for the 1928 building, but that was never built in. And that building was part of the high school, is part of the high school. We're in it. Classes, the band, gyms, art, language is all in that building. And now this has become it's going to be a separate issue that's going to cost separate money. And as far as I'm concerned, that's all part of the high school. And somehow we've got all these little pieces. It's only going to be $5 a year extra. It's like all this extra money. I just feel like we just haven't gotten the whole picture. But I really would like to know where that supposed extra money that was built in by our architect, by the builder, because he did say that, because it was a concern at the time. This was put through at a time when inflation was already a problem and the supply chain was already a problem.
Thank you.
You're going to get a few different people to answer different parts of the question. The additional money that the state gave us, the 14.7, we will get that money. That's based on the original project cost, the 135. When they gave us that money, they said that was due to price escalation, that they would give us the additional funds. The only way we can use it for price escalation is to have this next referendum. Otherwise, it couldn't be used to our benefit for that price escalation, but we will get that money regardless. That money we get no matter how this referendum turns out. It will go towards the building project. It will reduce the impact on the taxpayers.
But if we don't pass this referendum,
We still get that money. It's based on the original project cost. The 10%, go ahead.
It's 30% on the original referendum.
You would think so. Unfortunately, for the total, when we had the first referendum, we had that 135 million cap of spending. So to raise that cap per town charter, we have to have a second referendum. So it can't go towards the additional funds. It was just the way we received the money from the state, unfortunately. So to the other part of the question.
Regarding the escalation that was carried in our budget, I believe we actually increased it throughout the process. And I have some of our professional partners to quote me if I'm wrong, but I believe we carried about 8%. So 8% escalation was carried in our total budget. We also had numerous times during the design phase that we looked for cost estimates to get real time numbers. And we had to perform value engineering to bring the budget back down. So this overage is inclusive of the 8% we had already carried.
The 1928 building is a totally separate issue from this referendum we're talking about here. There will be a separate referendum for that building.
Thank you. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, good evening. Joanne Costantini at 2 Anglers Bend. I have two questions. The option, as you looked at other options, option one, reallocating the contingency and FFE budget, it was determined that would not be financially prudent as issues may arise at any time. And we know there are going to be issues. We've got the issue right now with inflation and supply chain management issues. So what is the contingency plan for the project with the budget? Let's just say the referendum passes. What's the contingency plan for? There are going to be other issues that escalate costs, right? So what's the plan around that? And then my second question is, really talk to me like I'm a fifth grader, maybe even a first grader. So as you talked about the potential impact to the taxpayer at an assessment of, call it 227,000, is that someone assessed at $227,000 home? Like, what is the 227,000? And so what are the ranges? Like, that's the average. What's the low? What's the higher, right? I think I overheard people in town saying, oh, it's only $491 and equates to $5 a year. But that's for the average person, right? So what are the outer edges of that increase? Thank you.
So I'm going to take the contingency question. So basically, when we had talked about that option one that you referred to, and this was talking about dollars that we have allocated to our FF&E budget as well as our overall contingency, those those dollars in total is somewhere around $10 million, I believe, for the project budget overall. Excuse me, and that will stay intact. So with this additional appropriation of funds, if it should pass a referendum, that 10 million can stay intact, which allows us to go ahead and adequately purchase what we need for furnishings and technology for the new school, as well as give us that allowable contingency dollars to cover anything that we are unaware of at this time. And through working with our professional partners, that is a standard percentage of the overall cost of the project that we actually allocate in the budget for that. So we are not touching that contingency at all. That's why we kind of felt that was a good option for us to make sure that we kept that in place for anything that we were unaware of that we could adjust to in the future. Does that help? Okay.
So the assessment is the average assessed home, and assessment is at 70% of the value of your house. So you're roughly looking at a $320,000 house. We're happy to do a calculation for your personal impact, because obviously the more your house is worth, the more you're going to be impacted by the taxes. But we're happy to do the math for you.
Yes, sir.
My name is Pierre Gerton, 12 Henley Commons here in Farmington. I rise in support ultimately of this project, although I think these recent developments are somewhat disappointing at best and a bit troubling on the worst side. But you know, we've progressed to this point. Unfortunately, I'm not sure that we have you know, the opportunity to say no. But hopefully we do a better job managing the project when it's underway than through this initial process of getting from the referendum last year to where we are now. What I've been most disappointed about is what I have felt to be somewhat incomplete information that's being provided to us. And that's on a good way of describing it. On another way, you could almost characterize it at times as being deceptive. So I'd like to just put a few things in context this evening. Okay. The project is going from 135 million to 145 million, so increasing just under $10 million. The state reimbursement was originally going to be 26 million. It's now going to be 40.7. Now they've discussed that it's 30% for the entire project, but that was based on the original cost of 135.6. So we are not getting fully 30% additional reimbursement on the extra $10 million of cost. And the reason is because that was a specific piece of legislation that fortunately our representative senator and representative was able to secure additional funding for this particular project. But because it was fixed, it's not able to go up. While there's a discussion that they might attempt to secure additional amounts, that's not included here, and you should not expect it. The other thing that's missing is they've talked to you about the increased interest costs, and unfortunately, we've all seen interest rates increase substantially. Back in the June 21 referendum, interest were supposed to be 33 million. It's now closer to 42 to 43 million. So about a $9 million increase. So while the net project cost, even after the additional costs and the higher state reimbursement is somewhat lower, the overall cost that's going to come through our taxes over the 30-year project is actually going to be $4 to $5 million higher, assuming that the assumptions for the interest rates are appropriate and reasonable. Okay. As far as the project cost is concerned, it's quite disappointing, candidly, when you took $9.7 million of scope out of the project from value engineering. You took $3.7 million as things that you'd like to have, but didn't think you were able to afford. Okay, so about $15 million. Okay. And after you took $15 million out, we're $6 million over. They said they had all these additional amounts in for contingencies. I don't know who came up with the estimates, but not a terribly great, great job. And the last thing I want to speak to is the tax impact. That's an area that I have felt all along has been deceptive and an incomplete presentation. If you think we're going to pay for a $145 million high school by costing the average person over 5 years, $490, there's something I'd like to sell to you, okay? The reality is when all the debt is taken out, the average impact to the taxes is close to $500 for that taxpayer that owns the assessed average home of about $227,000. If you look at your tax bill, you'll see your assessment. If you're close to 227, you can anticipate it's about $475 to $490 a year. If you're higher, just do the relationship on a percentage. How much more is your assessment, higher or lower, and multiply it by the $475 to $490. Okay. And so that has troubled me all along. This is a legitimate project. We are all citizens. We want to see our town progress, but we want valid information. We don't want tailored information. We want the complete picture. Nowhere in this presentation has anybody took the net project cost and the interest and showed us what the all-in cost is going to be. Why? Because when you do that, you can't say that it's lower than it was a year ago. So again, we are where we are. What I'm hopeful is that we have a successful project, but that we as a town step back and realize that our appetite for this kind of spending has got to be somewhat curtailed. In this very short period, we've taken on over $65 million of debt for the wastewater treatment facility, and now $145 million of cost relative to a new high school. And so when we talk about the 1928 building down the road, let's keep that in mind. We're sitting here, standing here. We said the high school is not good. It can't be redone. Build a brand new one. And we're talking about keeping the oldest piece from 1928. It makes no sense.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
Good evening, Ned Statchen, 6 Bella Lane. I just wanted to speak to a couple issues on this. The problem of, the bids coming in high and expenses going up and problems with material shortages are not specific to the town of Farmington. I'm an engineer at Connecticut DOT, and we're running into this problem a lot, and it's a problem all across the country. I recently did a semi-final inspection on a project where the contractor did a great job, and the bridge was already like 95% done, but the 42-inch high steel bridge railing isn't there. And he ordered it in plenty of time, but the delays are coming. So now we have to, in order to open the bridge for the winter, we have to come up with a scheme to put on some temporary concrete railing on, and it's going to drive the price of this project up at least $100,000. But you know, it's something we're trying to deal with, but I'm just want to point out that this is not just a Farmington problem. This is happening across the state and across the country. So I think we should support this. I think this high school is so badly needed in this town. And that I wish you would join me in supporting this issue. And because it's not really, you know, especially, and I'd like to thank our state senator and our state rep for getting the additional funding. It makes this a much easier pill to swallow. And I think that, you know, nobody is, that I can see has done anything wrong. These are just problems that have come up based on what's happened with the pandemic, what's happened with material shortages, skilled workers are in short supply. And these are all things that drive up costs. And we just have to, you know, bite the bullet. One thing we could have done was vote for this referendum on a new high school several years ago, and we'd be standing in a new high school. Well, not quite that soon, but we'd have a new high school, you know, almost here. So let's not make that mistake again, and let's get this high school built. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Emily Collini at 30 High Street. I just wanted to make a quick statement of support for the referendum. I
Yes.
think that the money was intended to help with the cost of this building project, and that's how it was given to us by the state, so that it's appropriate that that's where we use it. And I also think that the recent past shows that if we ignore the known needs now in order to have cheaper price tags or faster turnaround on things, it ends up costing more later. And so since this project is at a point now where it's appropriate to reassess and use these funds in this way, then I support the referendum and I ask my fellow voters to vote with me. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone over here? On my right. Yes, sir.
Tim Kelly, 62 Westview. Comment and then a question. I think it would be more clear in the future, if that's not already obvious, to while you summarize some of these presentations, to maybe show the different steps, right? So the first step in the project was it was going to be 136 million, and we were going to, as a town, finance 109. That was in June of 2021. Another step, which occurred in May of this year, said, well, now we're going to get more funding due to the hard work of our state representatives. So now the net cost of Farmington was going to be something more like 94, 95 million. And then, of course, now with the cost overruns and other issues we've run into, that net cost has gone up about 10 million to 104, 105. So whether it was intentional or accidental, I think it's always good to kind of show your work since we're in the academic environment. Now, my question is a simple one. Given this passes, the additional 10 million, and it becomes a $145 million project, what is the total cost to Farmington over what will be approximately 25 years of financing for principal, interest, and fees associated with the multiple bonds we'll be putting out there to borrow the funds? So what is, at the end of the day, that total dollar cost to Farmington? Thank you.
Joe, do we have the total interest cost available? If not, Tim, we can definitely get that to you. Yep, we will get it over to you.
I'll just add one, I'll add one piece to that. The total cost will be determined upon what the interest rate this is financed at. When we started this project, we based the project on a higher interest rate than we were seeing at that time. We had in the interim, one of the largest and most rapid increase rates that we've seen in the last 40 years. So it was not something that we anticipated the rates to be this high. So we would do, and I think on our building committee page, I believe we have the full numbers with the interest rate assumptions at this time, which are higher than the interest rate assumptions at the beginning.
Yes.
Hi, Marcus Fairbrother, 12 Candlewood Lane. In the interest of full disclosure, I'm also the chairperson of Comprehensive FHS, which is a group that is fully supporting this project and this referendum. First, I want to say thank you, excuse me, thank you to the town and to the building committee for all your work, keeping this project on track and keeping the public informed. I know that the building committee has been working very diligently with their professional partners, monitoring the changing economic landscape, and have done a good job of cutting costs to the best of their ability. Unfortunately, global economic conditions are not something they can control. I do want to say that the town and the building committee, excuse me, the town and the building committee have done nothing wrong here, nor is anyone trying to hide anything. In fact, I think you can go on the town's website or the building committee's website and find all the information that you want, and in fact, probably more than you want. In fact, I find it kind of hard to find the main salient points sometimes and all that information, but I think I can boil it down to three. First, as I said, global economic conditions are driving costs up everywhere, and this project is no exception. Two, the state has given us an additional $14.7 million above and beyond what they said they were going to give us in 2021. That additional money will completely cover the requested increase of 9.7 million and reduce the total cost to the town of another $5 million. And three, by town law, town charter, anytime we're going to increase the budget of a project in town, we need to hold a referendum to do that. So this, in essence, is a procedural vote. The money for this project does not come out of the town's pocket, it comes out of the state's pocket. We just need to accept it. We all want what's best for the town. All of us here wants what's best for the town. And this is what's best for the town. So please vote yes on Thursday, December 8th. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone over here on the right wish to be heard? Questions, comments? Anyone, sir?
Again, Pierre Gerton, 12 Henley Commons. To the person who asked the question and to the Farmington residents, the change in the interest on the bonds back in June of 2021, when we voted on that referendum, it was estimated to be $33.4 million. In connection with this upcoming referendum, the interest on the bonds over the 20-year period will be approximately 42.3 million. So an overall increase of $9 million. So all in, just like our own mortgage, okay, the 104.6 million, the revised so-called lower cost than the 109.3 is the principal, right? That's what we borrowed. But unfortunately, we don't get to borrow it for free. And we're going to have to pay $42.3 million of interest over that 20 some odd period. It'll be over more than 20 years because the bonds will be taken out in 4 tranches and they'll each be 20 years. And so the last tranche will probably not be taken out for a year and a half and then go, 20 years beyond that. 2 other comments, and I realize this may not be the forum, for a response, but I'm troubled by the fact in these very early stages that the neighbors in this community of the campus here of the high school am already being troubled by this project. And I don't know the details. I don't live in the neighborhood, but I know if I did, I would hope that everybody in the town would be equally concerned, because it could be me or it could be you. And if our residents are not getting their concerns addressed appropriately, then someone in town needs to step up as part of this project to make sure that that happens and we have continuous conversations and communication. I know there'll be some disruption, but what I've heard this evening is troubling. And the last thing is, we're being asked here to bargain and to vote for something that is going to cost us a bit more, $4 to $5 million over 20 years. In the scheme of things, not a huge increase. But what I do hope is that the town council, as our elected representatives, will ensure that the contingency that is in the budget is only used for unexpected conditions and not to expand the scope to add things back that have been agreed as a result of this presentation to have been taken out. Okay, so none of the value add stuff should go back because, you know, we've got a $6 or $8 million contingency. I don't know what it is, but it's sizable. If all of that is not needed, the bargain that the taxpayer should have with our town leadership is those savings pass on to us. So we don't have to borrow as much as what this presentation would indicate, and those savings would inure to us and future taxpayers. I think that's only fair, and I would hope at some point, perhaps in their next meeting, they will resolve as a council to put that into place. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else here on the right? Comments, questions? To the left, questions, comments? Last call for questions. Oh, that always works. That always works. Yes.
Leslie Clunes, 609 Playville Avenue. I'm just wondering, like, the state's giving us all this money. What in return do we have to give them? Other than our state taxes going up, but like, is there anything the state's going to have to give them? And also, why wasn't this vote done when we just voted so that more seniors could get out and vote on this? Because I know the seniors that I know, I tell them about it. First of all, they've never heard of anything. And then second of all, they're like, oh, I don't think I'll be able to get out and vote again.
So to answer your first question, this is a grant program run by the state of Connecticut. So we submitted the grant paperwork. They approved it, and that's the process for it. So there's no catch with that. Regarding the timing of the referendum, we did not receive the bid results until mid-October. And typically to put something on a state ballot, I think the cutoff is August, September. It's prior to when we actually knew we would need more money. So the timing just unfortunately didn't work out for that.
Thank you. Anyone else? Right. Do you wish to be heard? Okay.
Patty
Yes.
Picard, 11 Tanglewood Road. I do live in the neighborhood, and this summer was just horrible for lots of reasons, but part of it, and I have to admit this as a neighbor of this project, it was Mother Nature. We had a drought. They were digging. Dirt went flying. It stunk, but we got to move on from it. You know, they were trying to wet it down as much as possible. I walk this area all the time. If you live right on this property, you have and still have a horrible situation, and I feel for you. But I spoke to the people at O&G. They were trying to wet things down. We had a drought, you know, we couldn't. state wants us not to waste water and we were wetting dirt, so it wouldn't fly around. So that's, just wanted to share that. I had a question about the interest, and I've been sitting here saying, am I going to speak up? But the assistant town manager, I'm sorry, I don't remember your name, but at one point you said during your presentation, it was like a 3 point something %. And then you went on to say that over the next 2 years, it would be 4 something. Can you explain that a little bit more? Because that is boggling my math brain. And if you could just touch on that a little bit more, I'd appreciate it.
So first, for the neighbors, we also, we have responded to any concern that has been addressed by the neighborhood. We also have a dedicated page on our website for Highlands neighbors to get, they have direct lines to people at ONG, their cell phone numbers, and we have a mailing list where we can send updates directly through email to try to keep everybody in the loop, because we are committed to open communication with that. About the interest. So we did a financial forecast in June of 2021 prior to the referendum. And all of those, like I said, are based on assumptions. So one of the assumption is when we're going to go out for a bond, what the interest rate is going to be, and how much we're going to do. And it's going to be a 20-year term, but broken into 20 million here, 40 million there, whatever. You're not going to bond it all at once. We did the updated version prior to here, and the interest rates based on the economy are higher. So we were assuming 3% interest rates in 2021. Now those are up in the 4s. So that's going to add significant impact to, and you see it in the numbers that we presented tonight, to the overall tax impact driven by those increased interest rates. Now, these are all assumptions. For example, originally we were set to bond $20 million this year. Knowing that the feds were going to raise the interest rate, we actually bonded $37 million, and we locked that in at a lower interest rate in the 2s. So we are always trying to pivot and wait and make sure that the impact to the residents is as small as possible.
Thank you. Okay. Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Carl Fix. I live at 7 Belgravia Terrace. And this question is for the Madam Assistant Town Manager. I think a few moments ago, you said you submitted grants to the state and they have been approved. Is that the case?
Getting my workout in tonight. Yes, we submitted grants in June, at the end of June in 2021. The grants are based off of the $135.6 million. There's a form paperwork that you have to submit by June 30th of that year. So that has been complete and approved.
Okay, so the resolution that is at issue here says that the town, and I quote, anticipates that it will receive grants for the project in the estimated amount of approximately $40,600,000, period, end quote. Has the town today, November 28, 2022, does it have a commitment from the state for $40,600,000?
We have a commitment from the state for 30% reimbursement on the 135, which equals that 40.6 million. That's correct.
Okay. Why is the word anticipate used in the resolution?
Because there are eligible costs and there are ineligible costs. So we don't get all of the reimbursement until after the project is complete and an audit is complete. And there may be some things that are deemed ineligible and we would not receive reimbursement for those items.
In the language of the approval from the state, can the state step back and lower that $40,600,000?
No, we are locked into that 30%.
Okay. Thank you very much. I
Thank you.
appreciate that.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Yes, hi, Sam Reisner, 41 Main Street. Just really quickly, thank you for all your work. I just want to kind of put this bullet because I think a lot of people I've heard speaking to are confused. If you vote yes, then just to confirm, the net municipal cost, anticipated net municipal cost is lower. So we're increasing the overall project budget, but Farmington is responsible for less of that budget.
Anyone over here? Anyone else? Questions, comments? Okay, before I seek a motion to adjourn, I want to take a moment to thank the building committee this evening, the town staff, the town council and Board of Education for all their hard work. But most of all, I want to thank the residents for being engaged this evening. It takes effort to come out when the sun sets at about 3 o'clock and it gets a little cold. And we seem to have gone over a lot of this. So I want to thank you for coming out and expressing your feelings and having questions that are helpful and provide information to the community. So thank you very much for your participation. The next thing on my agenda is seeking a motion that we adjourn this special town meeting to the polls at the referendum to be held on December 8th, 2022, as contained in the warning. Do we have a motion? And a second? Okay. I don't think there's any discussion necessary. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Thank you again very much. Have a good evening.